College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Carnes, joined as always by my co-host, Daniel Hammock. Daniel, it's been a fun week for as Josh Pate says, there is no off-season, the O word, but, football being year-round, so we always have stuff to talk about, and this week was no different. We have, we've got some commits for Texas that we're going to talk about. We'll talk about Oregon's starting QB from this past season transferring out. And then you and I are going to talk through the Power 5 head coaches that have been hired. And instead of ranking them like 1, 2, 3, whatever, we're just going to talk about our opinion on them. And we're going to use some baseball terminology, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. But Daniel, did you have a good week? And tell us what to do on social.
Yeah, I had a great week. Definitely, missing college football, but luckily it's year round for us. And so with that being said, if you guys, we're on a new platform with YouTube, we'd love for you to, find our show link or a link to the YouTube in the show description. Please subscribe. Please hit the notifications bar so that you get the notifications when the show comes up. This will help us out a bunch. Also, our other social media platforms, follow us there on Instagram and Facebook at the Extra Point Pod. If you go there, that would definitely help us out. We want to build a followership. We want to connect you to us and definitely want to tailor the show to you guys. Another great way to do that is a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. This is going to be a way for us to get recommended more, but also we're going to be able to hear what you think and answer any questions that you have. We're going to be doing one of these shows coming up here in the off season. We're just going to do a big one to kind of put all of the mail together of just everybody's comments and questions and kind of roll through it all at once. So, get those in there and we can definitely, look those up. We'd be happy to do it.
Let's talk some football, Daniel. So Texas got a couple big QB commits here recently. 2 big recruits. One of them was a QB. Texas brings in 5-star quarterback Malik Murphy and 3-star defensive tackle Travell Johnson. So you put this on Twitter and tagged me in it, and I already tweeted it, but huge because Texas, of course, a few months ago lost Quinn Ewers to Ohio State. That's number one quarterback, number one player for the 2022 class. They replace him with another 5-star quarterback, the number 2 pro-style quarterback according to the 24/7 Sports composite, and then a very highly rated 3-star defensive tackle in Travell Johnson, who could very well be a 4-star by the end of the cycle. A really great start for the 2022 class for Texas.
According to his Twitter profile, he's already a 4-star. So, there's several different recruiting outlets. It only takes one to tell you you're a 5-star or a 4-star for you to claim the highest status. I know I would if I was a recruit, but yeah, Travell Johnson, great pickup. He got kind of overshadowed by the quarterback, Malik Murphy. So just the interesting thing with this, obviously everybody pointed to Quinn Ewers, as soon as Sark got hired, they said, okay, they're going back after him. He's South Lake High School, Texas, South Lake, Texas. So it seems obvious, like, hey, he's the Texas kid. You go back and get him. Well, they went over to California and just got a 5-star there, which, some people, are going to have issue with the fact that, hey, why don't you just get the guy who's at home, keep the kid at home, that kind of thing. But, the best programs in the country, yeah, they can recruit their state well, but they also have a footprint nationally. Texas has always been national, but to go get a big recruit like this nationally, that's big for Sark. He's got ties to Southern California from his days at USC, so definitely big there. Maybe some inroads on the West Coast. So, excited for them, but, what we might be talking about come signing day next year, Jacob, is Quinn Ewers. This might take the pressure off him not to, they're not going to try to flip him back. This might leave him in Ohio State's class, and Ohio State is already off to a blistering start for the 2022 cycle. So they could be following up this great class with another great class.
2022 could be, it's February, the year where Ohio State they're going to have a great shot to get number 1. They were number 2 this past season. And this could be one of these years where Ohio State gets a shot like Georgia's had recently to steal a number 1 class away from Alabama. So great start for Ohio State. And hey, great start for Sark in Texas. This is huge. You got to have a big first class to keep that talent cupboard full. and great start for Texas. Other big news in the transfer portal: Oregon's starting quarterback Tyler Shuck, who started all 7 games this past season for the Pac-12 champion Oregon Ducks, has announced he is transferring, following Oregon announcing that they are going to have an open quarterback competition all the way through fall camp. So, Daniel, where does this leave Oregon? What's your opinion on this transfer, and maybe who do you think can start next season?
Well, I know that you're going to kind of give us a few different, options. I know they've got some 4 stars there. They've got the same, similar guys who were there last year. I'm interested. It was, a lot of times coaches don't either they don't commit to a guy ever, or after they've got a guy, they kind of just they just don't publicly say anything about, hey, he's our guy or anything, and they just kind of let it play out, and then they just use the coaching tag. Well, there's always competition at every position, and then they just kind of brush it off, and it's not like a direct story. The fact that they came out and said there's an open competition tells me that they weren't sold on Tyler Shuck last year, and that Oregon won the Pac-12 despite him. Um, I do think that he's a high floor. I put this on Twitter. I think he's got a high floor, but I think this might raise their ceiling, him leaving. If, instead of going with the safe bet, if they end up with going with someone else, maybe the true freshman Ty Thompson, who comes in highly regarded. He's probably my favorite right now to win it. He's an early enrollee, and so you're going to get spring and obviously summer and then the fall camp. And if it is a full-on open competition, you have to think they're opening up because of people like Ty Thompson. So the other people, the other group of quarterbacks, they went against Tyler Shuck and they couldn't beat him out. So I guess if I was putting money on it, I'd put it on the new guy who hasn't gotten beaten out yet.
Oregon's got some options, right? They've got Anthony Brown, former Boston College starting quarterback. Then they've got 2 redshirt freshmen, 1 true freshman who are all 4 stars. So you've got Anthony Brown, you've got Jay Butterfield, who was a 4-star, lower rated 4-star. Robbie Ashford, same thing. And then Ty Thompson, very highly rated 4-star according to the 24/7 Sports composite rankings. I mean, to me, it's a 2-man race. I think it's Anthony Brown or Ty Thompson. We talked about him on our signing day episode being huge for Oregon. But, do you go with the guy who has experience, or do you go with the higher upside in Ty Thompson? Either way, this does have me just the siren song is just getting louder as we approach towards the season. And, I mean, the future Pac-12 champion USC Trojans just looking more and more likely at this point with Oregon not having a quarterback figured out yet. I say that half kidding, but I mean, you think Anthony Brown or Ty Thompson's more likely?
Well, I think from a program like future perspective, it's Ty Thompson. But if it's a safe bet thing, and if the whole Anthony Brown thing just didn't work out last year because of no spring practice and you couldn't get him ready, and so they just went with the guy who's already been in the system, that's something where I could see, hey, he just wasn't, ready for, being the starting guy last year, and Tyler Shuck was able to hold him off. So Anthony Brown has starting Power 5 experience. I think that would be, the back and forth and everything like that. But I mean, I just think freshmen have become able to start more frequently now. They've made it, the offense is built around them. Bottom line is, who's going to be able to throw the ball to help them win? And I think that's going to be Ty Thompson. Brown is definitely a good dual threat, and they might still work him into the offense. That might be something that they do to kind of keep that, read option and everything going. But Thompson's got speed too. So I think that they kind of have everything they need in Thompson, but they've got a great fallback plan in Anthony Brown if they end up needing to go that route.
That's true. Hey, let's talk some coaches. So we decided to go about it this way with ranking them, right? So some people have done letter grades. I think it's hard to give a letter grade on a coach when they haven't really coached yet. And so, Barton and Bud, Barton, who's been on our show before, they had a 3-tier system with I get it, I don't get it, and I love it with hires. So we want to approach it sort of similarly, but we're going to use some baseball terminology. So we're going to rank these coaches as either a home run, a hit, and so, hey, that's more of the I get it. Like, you got the single, it wasn't a home run, but you got on base. We're going to do a walk, or hey, let's wait and see. I kind of don't get it, but we'll see. And then if we have any of these, a strikeout. So if you just think like, hey, like, don't understand this, strike three, you're out, maybe a downgrade as a head coach. That's how we're going to rank these coaches. So we've got 7 Power 5 jobs who have already been filled, and we're just going to go in alphabetical order. So let's start with Arizona. Arizona fires Kevin Sumlin after 3 seasons and hired Jed Fish. This is Jed Fish's first time as a head coach. His previous job was the New England Patriots quarterbacks coach, but he's worked with a lot of different NFL teams, worked for a lot of NFL coaches, and before his NFL tenure, worked with 5 different Power 5 teams, like since the year 2000. So he's been all over the place, a lot of coaching experience, first time head coach. I put walk for this one, Daniel. It is what it is. Like, first time head coach, but I get firing someone, and so I'm saying walk here. Let's wait and see what happens. But he's worked with a lot of great coaches, so we'll see.
Yeah, I got him as a walk as well. Anytime you work with the Patriots, you're just gonna. It's kind of like anytime you work with Alabama. So him being the Patriots QB's coach, definitely something that I obviously paid attention to. I didn't really think highly of Kevin Sumlin. I think that he probably needed to take some time off after he got fired from Texas A&M to maybe love the game again, or not just get burnt out. He's a good coach, but he really needed to hit the reset button. And just going to Arizona, I don't think was that. Jed Fish, I like the idea of a walk just because let's wait and see. Let's see what he's about, what the program is about. Is this a fit? I think it will be down the road, but he's on base. We got to walk.
Yeah, we'll see. And, it's Arizona. I don't think there's super high expectations for them this season, but with the talent they have in state the past few years, there's no reason why they shouldn't be competing in the Pac-12 South. And, for the Pac-12's sake, they need to be competitive, right?
And just with Arizona State's emergence, like right. Arizona State is the sexy place to be, obviously, in that state. Getting Jaden Daniels as a freshman a couple years ago was Herm Edwards. Just, it's like a match made in heaven. You got quarterback and head coach figured out. And, I mean, a Sun Devil is way cooler than a Wildcat. So, like, both of those they had going for them. So, definitely some work to do for Arizona.
Let's go to the SEC. Auburn. So Auburn fires Gus Malzahn, hires Brian Harsin of Boise State. So I'll start with my ranking. I put walk/strikeout. So this was let me tell you why. So this is the only one where I was tempted to put strikeout on the list. So okay. I'll start there. Here's why though. All right, Auburn. I do think Auburn is a top 10, maybe top 15 job in the country. All right. That being said, you play in the hardest division in college football in the SEC West. You had a coach in Gus Malzahn that averaged 8-4 and was 3-5 against Nick Saban, the greatest coach of all time, who just put together the greatest team of all time this past season. What more do you want? Because to me, Brian Harsin, like, I could see him consistently going 9-3, maybe. And so at Boise State, he came in following Chris Peterson, and I mean, his seasons were, 12-2 his first season, 9-4, 10-3, 11-3, 10-3, 12-2, 5-2. He didn't raise the ceiling at Boise State. He kind of continued what was going on, if not regressed a little bit at Boise State. I think for me, it more has to do with, I think if you're firing a head coach, you better have a really good upgrade. Or like, hey, did they deserve to be fired? Even if you didn't have an upgrade, did you already know that like it wasn't going to get much better with this? For Gus, I just don't think Brian Harsin is an immediate upgrade to Gus Malzahn. I think that Gus is a really good coach, and so that's the reason why I lean strikeout is I don't think it's an upgrade, and
Right.
so I will say walk again with the hint of strikeout because I like Gus Malzahn a lot, and I don't think that Brian Harsin's about to come in and all of a sudden be beating Alabama every other year. I don't see him going 3-5 against Alabama over the next 8 seasons. Like I don't see him having a better record against Nick Saban, and I don't see him winning the SEC West twice like Gus did. So I'll say walk/strikeout. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was leaning. I think it's a strikeout firing Gus Malzahn. If you just put it right there, I think that was a strikeout for the sheer fact that I didn't think that he should have been fired. It kind of had, but it kind of had a stench of like Georgia with Mark Richt, but before this, it had run its course. Like it had been what 8 seasons, 10 seasons. So Richt held on and had 15 seasons at Georgia. I'm not saying you have to go 15 seasons, but I mean he's a good dude. He recruits at a high level. He gives you shots every other year. It seems like you have a good shot. Yeah, you're losing 4 games a year, but you're potentially the fourth or fifth. There's 3 or 4 teams on your schedule every year that are recruiting better than you. And so that naturally recruit better than you because of maybe their state, their circumstance, whatever. So that in and of itself is hard. I put walk because I like Brian Harsin. I think it's an interesting hire. I think they had several names floated out there that would have been strikeouts. They had a couple that I think may have been a home run, at least a hit. But Brian Harsin, I think, is different enough, off the beaten path enough, where it could result in scoring a run later. So the walk, I'm good with. I left it as a walk. I didn't, yeah, like you said, I didn't get the firing of Gus Malzahn in the first place, but I think that they hit a reset button after they fired him, and then they fired him, and I think that they were about to make a couple of bad decisions, and then they took a breath, and they kind of the adults in the room spoke up, and then they went and got somebody else. So that's why I have a little bit more respect for this Brian Harsin deal than I did that I thought I would. I thought they were going to go with someone that was kind of just a recycled SEC coach, and it wasn't gonna bear fruit. Not in this conference.
Not as bad as it could have been. 100% agree. But them wanting to hire some of those other coaches, I think is what caused Gus being fired now. And so, with you in that, firing Gus was a strikeout for sure. Brian Harsin, we will see. He's got to recruit better. I know it was his first year, but they had the number 7 class in the country last year, number 27 for this recruiting cycle. So if you want to compete in the SEC West, a really good way to fall behind is to fall behind in recruiting because
Yeah.
you've
Even one
got
season is a lot. That's a lot. They've really
and
got
that.
to answer next year with maybe a top 5 class to really balance what they just did and get some transfers.
I mean, 3 schools in your division just signed top 7 classes, and Alabama signed the number 1 class of all time. So 27 is a huge gap when you're
I
talking
mean,
between 7 and 27.
Alabama's Alabama, right? They're going to get first dibs on anyone in Alabama, usually, whoever they want. And then they're going to go national. They're going to go over to the same places that you want to go for recruiting. That's the problem. It's that they're in the same state, but they go to Atlanta to get people. They go to Tallahassee and to Tampa and to these parts of Florida. They go to South Florida and they get guys. And then they go over to the Mississippis. You're in the same area as them. LSU, the state of Louisiana is locked down. No one's getting in or out, and LSU just takes all the talent that's there, and there's a talent-rich state. At Texas A&M, they're getting their piece of the pie in Texas, so it's just a tough place to be. And then obviously your crossover with Georgia, and then Georgia is doing what they do on the other side. So yeah, it's a tough job. I'm excited to rank the best jobs because I'm interested to see where Auburn falls as far as best jobs go when we do that at a later date. But Brian Harsin got his work cut out for him. He's got some SEC coaches that he hired with him to help him, but we'll see where things go.
Let's go to the Big Ten. Illinois hires a familiar face in Brett Bielema. So Brett Bielema was the head coach at Wisconsin, and then Arkansas has spent some time in the NFL, most recently with the New York Giants. So they bring back Brett Bielema to the Big Ten. I put this one as a hit. I think that Bielema had a lot of success at Wisconsin. I think that the style of ball he tried to play at Arkansas, it worked for a couple seasons, and then you kind of saw the direction the SEC was going at that point. And if you weren't recruiting superior athletes, you can't run that style of football. Um, I'm saying hit because, one, I do think it was time for Lovie Smith to go. Two, you're in the Big Ten West, all right? You're not in the Big Ten East. And so at Arkansas, he was in, again, the toughest division in college football. He's had some time to see the NFL, maybe get more of a CEO mindset, not just run the style of ball he's always run. But at Illinois, I think he can recruit. He recruited well at Arkansas, so I think he'll be able to recruit at Illinois. If he can get some of the players out of Chicago, that'd be huge. And then, you're in the Big Ten West, so wide open division. I mean, Northwestern has won it 2 out of the last 3 seasons, so again, wide open division, and they beat Wisconsin with Lovie Smith. So, I think it's a hit for Brett Bielema. I don't have a huge opinion on it, but hey, you got Brett Bielema. Cool.
This is, for me, it's a strikeout. I
Oh,
I like Bielema. I like the fit in the Big Ten. I like that he's been a Big Ten coach before. But for me, this is a missed opportunity. Um, I definitely think that someone like Illinois would be better served to almost go service academy and just go with a like some sort of option or just something crazy and funky that you just don't see anywhere. And right now, I just feel like you just became Wisconsin Junior and like Diet Wisconsin. And so I don't really like you're in the same division as Wisconsin. Wisconsin's more talented than you. And yeah, you beat them, but on a regular basis, like what's going to happen? And so, I mean, he's a fine coach. And if you're fine with just kind of being fine and not really moving the dial or, sneaking up and beating somebody big, having a big time win, then I mean, you could just recycle this name through the Big Ten, and I think it's fine. So I put it as a strikeout just for the sheer fact that I don't really like the fit with this level of school. I think that he's a good coach. He'd be good at other schools. He's going to be fine here, but Illinois had an opportunity to really kind of step outside the box and really make some things happen. So I'm not really impressed with it.
all right. Let's go back to the SEC. South Carolina hires Shane Beamer, and I'm gonna say, so I put down 2 options here. Let me throw it to you. You might be able to sway me. What do you think about Shane Beamer?
I think it's a hit.
Okay.
I was back and forth. I think that it's just amazing what what a perceived last name will do for you. Like
Mm.
his dad, obviously, just such a great coach at Virginia Tech, but Shane was on the staff with Steve Spurrier, and then he goes to Georgia and he coaches under Kirby Smart, so he knows the SEC East really well because he's been there for 2 stops. Obviously, going out to Oklahoma, being around them, being around Lincoln Riley, he's been around success. And his first choice was coming back to be South Carolina's head coach. I know they probably went through some guys, but he wanted to be there more than other coaches. And so for me, someone who's bought into that culture, to that area, that's what it's going to take to be successful there. And it's going to be tougher for them to fire one of their own. And so I think that's what they see when they see Shane Beamer. So, and I hate to even talk about firing since he just got hired, but it's difficult in a job like this to sustain it for a long period of time. If he can get them to consistent bowl game success, I think that they are willing to kind of forgive the like not being great all the time. And then if he cycles up and has like a 9-win season every now and again, I think that'd be cool with South Carolina fans. There's not a lot of pressure on him. I think he just fits. It's a good fit for what they want to do. So I'll go with a hit.
So I put hit slash walk. I really didn't know which way to go with this. Well, let me talk through it and I'll see where I land. So what's something within the world that we all know? And that is, it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? And Shane Beamer knew the right people to get this job.
He's got a
And
Rolodex full of good people. So
he does. He's got all the right contacts. He called all the right guys. He was at South Carolina during the best era of South Carolina football ever with Spurrier. He's been with two like up and coming young head coaches who both gave him great reviews. Like Georgia and Oklahoma's staff has been like, what a great guy. Like everyone just said like, great guy. Like what a great guy with Shane Beamer. He's been the assistant head coach at Oklahoma. So kind of getting that CEO exposure, role with Lincoln Riley. His dad was Frank Beamer, a Hall of Fame college football head coach at Virginia Tech. You mentioned he wanted the job. This reminds me of Sam Pittman to Arkansas, where, hey, not everyone might have wanted me, but like I wanted you.
Yeah.
Like he wanted the Arkansas job. So from that aspect, I do love the fit in that, hey, he wanted it. So I think that's great for culture. It's great for buy-in, especially for recruiting, in that like, hey, I wanted to come back here because I know I can win here. So I think that confidence is important, right? He wasn't one of these guys who interviewed for a couple of SEC jobs just to see where it took him. He was all in on this job. Like he wasn't about to go interview at Tennessee or at Auburn. He was interviewing at South Carolina. So first-time head coach, some of his staff has kind of been picked apart. And so even that, I want to believe in him in that it seemed like he hired right guys because other schools wanted them.
Right.
How quickly can he replace those guys? Because Nick Saban has taken him 20 years to be able to just recycle coaches and do really well. So some of his first choice staff has been hired away. I'm gonna say walk. You know what? I'll go hit. I want to be on the record in that I think Shane Beamer will be a good coach. But Cartwright has been on the show. If you're listening, Cartwright, thanks, man.
We love you.
We love you. So I think South Carolina fans want more than 9-3. I think Shane Beamer's a 9-3 coach. So, like, I think he is your 8-4, 9-3. Like, hey, they're always third in the East. Like, can cycle up and get 2. They don't want that. They want the Spurrier years. But even in the Spurrier years, you only won the SEC East one time. Never won a conference championship. I just don't know how high South Carolina's ceiling is. So, all that being said, I will say hit for Shane Beamer.
Hey, step one is raise the floor. So I think he's going to do that. So
I'm with you. Let's stay in the SEC. Tennessee. This could have gotten bad for Tennessee like it did last time. They actually had a professional coaching search, was kept very quiet until they were the ones that announced that Josh Heupel was hired. Danny White comes in, and so I'm going to say hit for Josh Heupel. Here's why. Number one, I was tempted to put walk because Josh Heupel was not Tennessee's first choice. And what's funny is we mentioned this before, but Josh Heupel was not Danny White's first choice at UCF either. Right. So he has like fallen back on Josh Heupel twice now. So I will say hit because he's developed 2 really good quarterbacks at UCF. He's an offensive-minded head coach. And 2 things that Tennessee has struggled with under Jeremy Pruitt was having a capable offense and developing a quarterback. And so I think that he will be able to come in and do that immediately. That will not translate to, a 10-win season immediately. It will translate into like more enjoyable football, I think. I think the product in the field will look nicer. Can he recruit? I don't know yet. You could argue that UCF declined under Josh Heupel after Scott Frost left. And so again, I will say hit because I think the two problems you had this past season, I think Josh Heupel will be able to fix. The problems I could see over the long tenure will be Jeremy Pruitt could recruit. Can Josh Heupel recruit at Tennessee? And like you mentioned with Auburn, you're going up against Georgia, who's getting top 2-3 classes every year. They've had a couple number one classes recently. Florida, who is getting top 10 classes, but then really working the transfer portal really well, right, in the SEC East. And your cross division matchup is Alabama, and we all know what Alabama is. So I think if he can recruit, that'll really solidify how good of a coach he can be. You know what? I'm saying walk on Josh Heupel. I talked myself out of it. Walk for Josh Heupel. That's final, locked in. Go ahead.
I've got him as a hit by pitch. I think he got hit by a pitch, okay. And I think he's going to end up on base regardless. I don't think it's a strikeout. So the hit by pitch is two-pronged for me. It wasn't an option. I made it an option. Because it's in between. I think he was he just was in the way, he was in the way of, Danny White when he was making selections. He tried to go other places and then he ends up with him. But I also think that, hey, it might have hurt like a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, joining in with, Tennessee and their volatile, fan base. This is going to be a roller coaster weekly, probably, so you can talk all you want right now about the expectations will start low. We're going to build this up from the ground up, but after a week 1 win versus, I don't know if I haven't looked at their schedule, but if they play like a non-con and they beat them, it's everything is going to go through the roof, and they're going to be expected to beat Florida and Georgia this year. And it just is what it is. It's nature of the beast, the SEC, especially I guess I can call them a SEC blue blood. It's fair, I guess. I don't know. In the 90s, I really, this isn't meant to be disrespectful. I'm trying to capture what, the Tennessee fans' perception is of what he's going to do, because I do like him. And I do think that this kind of provides stability for them. And I'd like to say walk, but it was more fun to say hit by pitch. So I think he's a good hire. We'll have to wait and see, but the wait and see is more about everything around him than him. I think he's going to develop a quarterback, whether it's Caden Salter, the freshman that's coming in, whether it's Harrison Bailey, who's been there for a year, whether it's Hendon Hooker, who's transferring in from Virginia Tech. I think he's got a few good options. Jarrett Garantano's gone, but you still have some good options to kind of push the room forward. That's going to be the biggest story. Who he can hold on to, that's currently in the transfer portal that might not leave, that might leave, I don't know. And then something you mentioned about recruiting, the fact that Pruitt recruited so well for him, it kind of makes me think the possibility might be kind of like how Paul Johnson took over at Georgia Tech. Chan Gailey had just stocked the cupboard with a bunch of 4- and 5-star players, and then he gets fired. And then here comes Paul Johnson running his triple option. And the option looked a lot sexier those first couple of years when he had a 4-star quarterback in Josh Nesbitt, 5-star running back Jonathan Dwyer, 4-star receiver in Demarius Thomas. Like, he had some dudes doing it. And then, Johnson couldn't continue to recruit. So it kind of went away after a few years, and it just kind of became run of the mill. No pun intended. But yeah, I think this could be similar if he kind of sparks early and he can't recruit. But I have a hunch that he just hired Rodney Garner. I think he knows you got to recruit in the SEC. I think that's a big hire for him. Defensive line coach might be his recruiting coordinator. He's been recruiting coordinator at Georgia and at Auburn before, so he knows the area well. Might be able to keep Big Cat in the fold after he announced his transfer. So, yeah, I'm hit by pitch. We'll see what happens with Josh Heupel.
Let's go to the big one, Texas. So Texas hires Steve Sarkisian, and so home run is my answer for this. And I think we might be on the same page here. So home run is my answer on Steve Sarkisian. this could have gone really, really bad. So this started with, like, it was very well known that Texas went after Urban Meyer and Urban Meyer turned them down, all while Tom Herman was still the head coach. Then the AD comes out and gives him a, like, kind of vote of confidence, a little bit. It was called a vote of confidence, but the statement to me never looked like a vote of confidence. The AD made it very clear that he did not hire Tom Herman. Like, he had said that several times. And then on the same day, they announced that Herman's fired and they've hired Steve Sarkisian. So going from, like, really fumbling, like, the beginning of it with, we clearly don't want Herman. We went after Urban Meyer. We got told no. I guess we'll stick with Herman, to getting Steve Sarkisian, that alone will be home run. But the fact that you got Sark now, home run. Has head coach experience at a very similar program in USC where boosters are very involved. You are supposed to be the blue blood of your conference, like major talent in state. So very similar program in USC. Was a head coach, was not fired for on-field performance, was fired for issues that were off the field that have since been solved. So awesome story for Sark, great comeback story. Also has experience in the NFL and has successful experience in the NFL, had successful offenses. Yes, he was fired from the Falcons, but I think any football fan would know he was not the problem. And that was a head coach trying to cover up and save his own butt. Anyway, so has NFL experience, which will help with recruiting because of the results he produced in the NFL, and comes off a season where he just ran the best offense, maybe in college football history. So, home run. The staff he's hired has been a home run. He's a great recruiter. I mean, this to me, Texas could not have ended up with anyone better. And I would like, I'm not trying to have a hot take. This to me would be on par with hiring Urban Meyer. I think I'd be equally as excited as a Texas fan if we got Steve Sarkisian or if we got Urban Meyer. I think that both are home run hires, and you got Steve Sarkisian. So home run for me. What about you?
It's the hammer and Hank. I think this is a home run as well. Definitely a huge fan of Steve Sarkisian as a whole. Great story, like you said, him overcoming some off the field issues that he had, some personal stuff. And yeah, I mean, I'm a Falcons fan, saw him firsthand and kept standing on the, soapbox and yelling, hey, he's not the problem. Yes, he could have ran the ball more, but it is what it is. Then he comes to Alabama and it's like, hey, he's fine. He was definitely not the problem. And yes, I think that's the biggest point for me is the one you made about USC is that it is a similar job. It is the most similar job to one another. Mm-hmm. If you pick USC, what's the most similar job? It's not UCLA. Yeah, they're close to each other proximity wise, but which one's the closest? Same for Texas. It's not Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a small state. Like it's not, one of the other schools in Texas. It's you're the blue blood of your state, of your conference. You are the you have all these famous alumni, not just alumni, famous alumni. You've got a lot of hands in the pot. You need to, navigate through that. And you have to be somewhat of a politician, but you have to be above all else a great football coach. I think he's a great football coach. And I think that, any issues that he's had in the past as far as on the field stuff where he may have moved on from one job or been not as he's been being refined all this time. You're not your finished product when you're taking your first job at Washington or taking your next job at USC or, as far as being a head coach. So I really think that the time between USC to now has been such an immense growth opportunity for him. On and off the field. This is a home run for me. It's my only home run that I listed here. I do really I like Sark in and of itself. I think he's a great coach if he went anywhere. The fact that he's going to Texas, who needs something like this to spark them going forward, definitely impressed and definitely, I like the staff he's starting to put together, all the little things. I think he's going to do the little things well. Obviously, we talked to recruiting at the beginning of the show. And that's a big thing. So I like where the direction of this is going. So it's a home run for me.
Last but not least, Vanderbilt hires Clark Lee, and I'm stuck between two things here. I think so. Here's how I'll describe it. I've grown up a Braves fan. You're a Braves fan, Daniel. For those
Very
watching on
much so.
YouTube, yeah, Daniel held up his Hank Aaron bobblehead when talking about Steve Sarkisian. So be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. You get little stuff like that. You can see some visual reactions. But so Clark Lee gets hired at Vanderbilt. This to me is like a Chip Carey, like as soon as the ball leaves the bat and he thinks it's a home run, and like it might be like a pop out to left field.
Swing it a drive.
Yeah, might be a
Heat
hit
to left field.
So I think this
Caught
is
on the warning track.
right. This is for sure a hit for me, for Clark Lee. Like hit for sure, has the ability to be a home run. So this is like a long hit, like to the wall. I think I don't want to say home run because I need to define home run for Vanderbilt. Right,
Jacob, you are reading my notes.
really?
I put double. I said it's a hit. It's a double. I think that it's a bellowing double off the wall. I think that this is definitely right up the alley. I was toying with home run myself. I'll call it a ground rule double. He hits it bounces over the wall. So it just took one hop to get there. Clark Lee, I mean, great. He's from Nashville. So you talk about fit. That's great. He obviously coached, at Notre Dame, has the, that kind of status coming from Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a difficult school to get into academically. It has a lot of standards. So does Vanderbilt. So I think he understands how to recruit certain athletes by doing that. Obviously being a DC there, very important. I think that, Vandy could have very easily said, we're going to go to a service academy guy, try to run the triple option. We can go with an offensive guru. We just had a head coach who was a defensive coordinator. It didn't work, but they did a good job of finding the right guy. They didn't say we have to find this profile. We didn't go after this one profile. They said we got to find the right guy for Vanderbilt. And I think they did. Clark Lee was a great hire. Also great hire was his general manager, friend of the show, Barton Simmons. So very happy for Barton, also a Nashville native. He had signed off on his own show on Cover 3 that he thought Clark Lee was going to be a great hire for whoever. Come to find out, we had no idea that they had played ball together. They had done all these things together.
Yeah.
I guess it's a Google search away, but who's going to look that stuff up for, before anything happens? And, that kind of surprised me, but just the whole, everything around, there's a lot of energy is what I'm saying. It's not just, we love Barton Simmons. We're always going to talk well of him, but someone like that getting hired to be a general manager in the program, which basically, scouting, all that kind of stuff, roster management. But there's been a ton of energy around this program since Clark Lee got hired. It's not just another Vanderbilt coach. I think that this is a little bit different. Now, what does that turn into expectations wise? It's going to be difficult to gauge that at least for a couple years. But for Vanderbilt, I think that they've got their guy for at least the next 8 to 10 years.
8 to 10 years, yeah. So we pretty much have the same notes on this. Ground rule double from Nashville, played football at Vanderbilt. Like,
I didn't realize
played football at
okay.
Vanderbilt, 2002 to 2004. Staff building. You mentioned
so he played with Jay Cutler then is what you're telling me.
Play with Jay Cutler at Vandy.
Jay Cutler is a phone call away.
So, and we've already seen with recruiting, like, they're going to maximize the city of Nashville. Nashville is one of these hot cities in the country that really cool city. Vanderbilt's right in the middle of downtown. I mean, it is in Nashville. Like, they're talking all about, similar to Georgia Tech and Jeff Collins being like the 404, just embracing the Atlanta culture. Vandy's embracing Nashville, like come to the West End. And all the staff hires they've made, Clark Lee seems to have a CEO mindset for this program. And like you mentioned, I liked that they didn't do it. Some of these schools do. For instance, Tennessee wanted to have an offensive-minded head coach. You don't need to worry about what the head coach was beforehand or like they were an offensive guy or defensive guy. Just find the right fit. And the fact that Clark Lee, like Nashville native, played at Vandy. Now he's going to be the head coach at Vandy, coming off of having, I mean, you went to the college football playoff twice with Notre Dame, where your defense is one of the best in the country every year. You've like you mentioned, recruited well at Notre Dame, which is hard to get into, harder academic standards, but found the right guys that were great athletes and great students, which you'll have to do at Vanderbilt. I'm with you. Like, I think Vandy, I think realistic expectations for Vandy, if you could average 7-5 every year, I think that's great for Vanderbilt. Now,
Oh yeah.
James Franklin, had 3 9-win seasons. I think you can do that, but if the average is in that 7 to 8 region, I think you can go to a bowl game every year at Vanderbilt. I really think you can. It's possible. So, yeah, ground rule double. I'm excited to see it. I'm rooting for him, and of course, you know this. I mean, Barton Simmons has been my guy for 3 years. So the fact that they hired Barton, I'm gonna be a fan. So I'm gonna have to get me a Vandy shirt. We'll have to go to Nashville and see if Barton will let us tour the football facility or something. Get a game in this year. But
That'd be awesome.
hey, that's 7 Power 5 head coaches waiting on a couple more spots to be filled. But we got 1 home run for both of us, a couple strikeouts. But I think we're both on the same page. Shark's been the best hire of this cycle so far. You can follow Daniel on Twitter at Deep South Daniel. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Carnes with a K. That'll do it for this edition of The Extra Point. He is Daniel. I'm Jacob. See you.